A jagged bolt of lightning slashed across the storm-choked skies above Eastbridge, slicing the night in two. Darian Cole, a black entrepreneur in a tailored Navy suit, stepped confidently from his sleek private jet onto the jet bridge of Nova Air Flight 921. His tablet glowed in his hand, boarding info pulled up, posture calm and assured. But a wall stood in his way. Mallory Kent, a flight attendant with a smug little smirk and a platinum blonde ponytail, blocked his path like she owned the runway. "Economy's that way," she said with a scoff, snatching the first-class ticket from his grip before he could speak. Thunder growled overhead as she physically shoved him back off the aircraft, completely unaware he owned Nova Air. Her mocking smile didn't budge. What storm would that mistake unleash? Before we dive into that chaos, drop where you're tuning in from. And if you stand for truth and accountability, smash that like and subscribe for more real justice, real fast. Rain hammered the windows of the jet bridge, turning the Eastbridge night into a blurred canvas of silver and shadow. Darian stood firm, his polished Oxford steady on the rubber flooring. The chaos outside mirrored the rising storm inside. Each rumble of thunder echoed the sting of Mallory's shove. Her badge caught the overhead lights like a challenge coin, chest puffed out like she was guarding a throne. She strutted down the bridge with her arms crossed tight, her ponytail swinging with smug rhythm. She'd yanked his pass from his hand just moments ago, her voice a sharp bark. "Economy's that way." Now she marched ahead, blind to the fire she'd lit. Darian adjusted his tie, his face composed, but his eyes, sharp and dark, burned with silent fury. He'd flown with Nova Air more times than he could count. For 3 years, he'd owned a controlling stake, and here he was, treated like an intruder in his own sky. At the terminal's edge, passengers milled in weary clusters. Delayed by the storm, they clutched styrofoam coffee cups and scrolled aimlessly on phones, heads turning as Darian followed behind Mallory, his 6-foot frame slicing a silhouette through the flickering gate lights. She spun on her heel, planting herself like a roadblock between him and the gate agent's desk. Her voice rang out, loud and accusatory. "This guy's trying to sneak into first with a fake pass. He's not going back on until this is handled." Her words carried venom. Her pale blue eyes narrowed, daring him to argue. Murmurs rippled through the gate area. Some nodded, their expressions knowing, as if they'd expected this. Others leaned in, whispering behind cautious hands. Darian felt the weight, the stares, the unspoken judgment crawling across his skin like nettles. He slid his tablet from his inner jacket pocket with care, fingers steady, movements deliberate. He pulled up a digital copy of his ticket. Nova's logo shone brightly on the screen. Seat 1A, first class, name Darian Cole. He held it out, voice smooth as steel. "Check it. I belong there." Mallory's smirk slipped, just for a breath, but she snatched the device anyway, her manicured nails tapping against the glass. She squinted, trying to find a flaw, trying to will the truth into a lie. "This doesn't prove anything," she snapped, thrusting it back. "Anyone can fake a screenshot. I'm calling security." Her tone snapped like a gavel, and in her eyes, Darian saw it. The kind of certainty built not on fact, but on assumption. The kind that doesn't need truth to make a verdict. She yanked her radio from her belt and barked, "Gate 6, I need security now. Got a guy trying to scam his way into first class." Static fizzed, followed by a gruff reply. "On our way." Darian exhaled slowly, a fog of breath curling in the cold air. He'd felt this before, that instant shift from suspicion to criminality, how his skin turned a boarding pass into a battleground. But this time, the rules were his. This was his airline. His sky. He wouldn't let it slide. He slipped his phone from his pocket and tapped a call, his voice low, deliberate. "They've started it," he murmured. "Move forward." A crisp "understood" crackled back, and the call dropped. Seconds later, footsteps echoed on the jet bridge, heavy and fast. Two security guards rounded the corner. The first was a mountain of a man with a buzz cut and a badge that read Dalton. His fingers hovered near the baton on his belt. The second, smaller and wiry, with a pinched face and sharp eyes, flicked between Mallory and Darien like he was calculating the odds of a brawl breaking out. "What's the issue?" growled Dalton, planting his wide frame squarely in Darien's path. Mallory stepped forward, smugness radiating. "This man's got a fake first-class ticket. I told him economy is his lane. He refused. I want him out." Mallory's chin lifted, defiance hard in her jaw. "This guy's trying to play slick with a fake first-class pass," she said, loud enough for the whole gate to hear. "I told him economy's where he belongs, but he won't listen. Get him out." Her voice was sharp and final, more like a command than a concern. Dalton nodded once, cracking his knuckles with slow intent as he stepped forward. The threat was clear, but Darien raised a calm hand, his voice slicing through the tension like a scalpel. "Before you lay a hand on me, scan it. Check the system. It's real." Dalton paused, his thick hand hovering midair. The second guard, wiry and skeptical, pulled a handheld scanner from his belt. His badge read Reed. He glanced toward Mallory, waiting for a signal. She rolled her eyes but didn't stop him, her confidence still burning bright. Reed tapped the scanner to Darien's glowing tablet. The device beeped, syncing with Nova Air's database. The screen blinked green. Darien Cole, Seat 1A, First Class. But before Reed could speak, Mallory cut in. "That proves nothing," she snapped, her voice rising in pitch, almost panicked. "Could be photoshopped. He probably hacked it. I'm not buying it." Dalton didn't wait. He grabbed Darien's arm hard, the grip bruising through the fabric of his suit. Reed flanked him on the other side. The crowd shifted, parting like water. Gasps rippled. Phones came up, shaky and wide-eyed. The scene moved like molasses, slow, surreal. Darien didn't resist. His body stayed relaxed even as pain flared in his arm. He'd learned this dance, how pushing back too early gave them all the excuse they needed. A black man who fought was a problem. A black man who stayed calm, dangerous in a different way. His mind moved faster than the guards. Across the terminal, a young gate agent froze behind her desk. Her eyes locked on the scene, her fingers frozen mid-keystroke, unsure whether to act or stay invisible. Halfway across the gate, Dalton shoved Darien hard against a metal pillar. The impact echoed, a harsh clang against cold steel. "Stay put," the big man growled. Reed lingered nearby, his radio crackling faintly with chatter from the jet. Whispers spread through the crowd like spilled smoke. What did he do? Figures. Should have known. Each murmur dug like a nail beneath the skin. Darien straightened slowly, brushing his jacket down, his expression unshaken. Mallory strolled up, her smirk returned, wider, meaner. "Told you," she said loud enough for everyone to catch. "You don't belong up there. Security's got this now." She turned with a victorious sway, her heels clicking across the tile like applause. She thought she'd buried him, but the radio on Dalton's belt crackled with static. Then a voice, thin with tension. Hold up. We've got a match on this guy. System says he's VIP, top brass for Nova." Dalton's jaw clenched, eyes cutting toward Darien, who stood calm, hands in his pockets. A slow smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Reed fumbled with the scanner again, tapping twice, rechecking. His face went pale. "He's legit," Reed muttered, almost apologetic. Mallory spun back around, her smirk vaporizing. "What?" she snapped. "That's impossible." Darien held her gaze, voice smooth as marble. "Double check. I'll wait." Dalton hesitated, his hand twitching toward his baton, instinct fighting information. But Reed stepped forward, holding the scanner up for all to see. "It's him. Darien Cole. First class is his." The crowd sucked in a collective breath. Murmurs shifted. Awe, embarrassment, shame. Mallory's face flushed deep red, her fists clenched at her sides. She'd been so certain, so sure. And now the ground beneath her was starting to crumble. "This is ridiculous," she spat, but her voice cracked, the first sign of her fortress cracking. Dalton stepped back, muttering a flat, "Sorry, man." It sounded more like a warning than an apology. Reed nodded toward the jet bridge. "Let's get you back on." Darien adjusted his cufflinks, his smile spreading, not wide, but sharp. "Appreciate it," he said, voice dipped in cool irony. The crowd parted again, but this time it was different. Not suspicion, curiosity, respect, confusion. Phones rolled. No one wanted to miss the scene now. Mallory stood frozen, her power slipping between her fingers like sand through a broken hourglass. But her eyes, they burned now. Not with certainty, with vengeance. Darien paused at the mouth of the jet bridge, glancing back once, his expression unreadable. He'd won this round, or so it seemed, but he knew her type, entitled, bruised by public shame. And shame that deep doesn't heal. It festers. She wouldn't let this die. He stepped back onto the bridge. Thunder cracked above as if to underline it all. The real storm wasn't outside anymore. It was coming for him. The terminal buzzed with restless energy, a chaotic stew of damp travelers and flickering fluorescent lights, throwing jagged shadows across the polished floor. Rain slammed the floor-to-ceiling windows, each gust of wind rattling the glass like fists demanding entry. Delays stretched everyone's nerves thin. Passengers sprawled across molded chairs, faces sagging with fatigue, frustration etched in every glance. Through it all, Darien Cole stepped back into the gate like a storm in a tailored suit, his stride unbothered, despite everything that had happened. The crease of his jacket sharp, his gaze calm but predatory. Flanking him were Dalton and Reed, their body language tense, like they still didn't quite know whether to salute him or shove him again. The moment they stepped into view, the crowd rippled. Phones lifted, gasps whispered like wind through dry grass. Wasn't that the guy they dragged out earlier? How was he back? Who was he? At the gate desk, Mallory Kent stood stiffly, arms crossed tight. Her confidence had curdled into something bitter. Her mouth was pressed in a hard line, and her ponytail, once bouncing, now hung limp. She didn't say a word as Darien reclaimed his ground. Dalton muttered a barely audible, "Sorry, sir," his buzzed head dipping like a reluctant soldier. Reed handed back the tablet, its screen still bright with Nova Air's digital manifest. "Everything checks out." "You're good to go," he said, voice low, a little unsteady. Darien nodded, sliding the device into his inside pocket. His voice was cool, edged with purpose. "Let's get this flight back on schedule." The guards moved with him, escorting him past Mallory, whose glare could have burned through steel. But Darien didn't even look her way. He walked with the same composure he had when he stepped off his jet, the confidence of a man who knows he belongs and who owns everything they think he doesn't. It looked like a victory, but beneath that calm, Darien knew better. Nova Air Flight 921's first-class cabin was a world away from the chaos on the ground. Soft amber lights glowed overhead, smooth leather seats wrapped in warmth. The murmur of polite conversation, buckled passengers adjusting blankets and browsing menus. When Darien entered, some passengers glanced up, curious, puzzled, a few with wry smirks, as if recognizing a man who'd just flipped a narrative. He slipped into seat 1A, the one Mallory had tried to snatch away. He exhaled slowly, the faint scent of lavender from the folded blanket mingling with jet fuel in the filtered air. For just a second, it felt like a win. The kind of win he'd spent his life fighting for. Proof that he deserved to be here. But that calm shattered fast. Mallory stormed down the aisle like a bullet in heels. Her steps cracked like gunshots on the cabin floor, her face twisted into a mask of fury barely held together. Her hands trembled as she clutched her service tablet, knuckles pale against the plastic. She stopped at his row, voice low but dripping with venom. "You think you're clever, huh?" she hissed, slipping past security with that little trick. Darien didn't flinch. His fingers rested lightly on the armrest. "It's not a trick," he said evenly. "It's my seat." Her eyes narrowed, that flicker in them, not just anger now, something darker, calculated. She didn't reply, just spun on her heel and disappeared behind the galley curtain. Darien watched her go. His gut twisted. He knew that look, the kind of look that didn't give up, the kind that doubled down. One woman's wounded ego was about to turn a routine flight into a battleground. Minutes later, the plane shuddered to life. Engines roared beneath the cabin floor. The fuselage vibrated as Flight 921 taxied toward the runway. Rain still lashed the windows, thunder rolling in the distance. Darien pulled out his phone, thumbs quick and quiet. Text to his COO, the one person who always had his back. "They're letting me back on. But it's not over. Phase 2. Her reply buzzed back instantly. "Got it. We're ready." He tucked the phone away, mind racing. Mallory's retreat wasn't surrender. It was strategy. She'd been humiliated in front of dozens. And people like her? They don't just get even. They come back with blood in their mouth. The aircraft lifted into the night, slicing through the clouds with a tremble. Turbulence jostled a few trays. Lightning flashed nearby. Darien stayed calm, but his instincts screamed. Something was brewing behind that galley curtain. In the back, Mallory hunched over the crew phone, her voice hushed but sharp as a razor's edge. "Captain, we've got a situation in first class." There was a pause on the other end. "Go ahead." She added a tremble to her voice, just enough to sell the lie. "That passenger, Darien Cole, he threatened me when I questioned his ticket, said I'd regret it." Her tone was full of rehearsed panic, not her first time twisting the truth. Captain Harold Brenner, a no-nonsense veteran with 4 decades of sky under his belt, grunted. "He threatened you? You sure?" Mallory nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "Yes, sir. I don't feel safe with him in first." There was silence, then a bark. "Fine. Lock him down. We'll sort it mid-flight." She ended the call, smoothing her uniform with icy precision. Mallory Kent had lost the gate, but she planned to win the sky. Up in first class, Darien Cole felt the shift before it happened. The plane had leveled out. The seatbelt sign blinked off. Silence buzzed across the cabin like a warning. 2 crew members emerged from behind the curtain. One tall and twitchy, the other broad-shouldered and tight-lipped, clutching a clipboard like it was a weapon. They stopped at his row, their eyes unreadable. The woman spoke first, her voice clipped. "Sir, we need you to come with us. Captain's orders." Darien arched a brow. His pulse quickened, but his expression didn't budge. For what? The lanky guy shifted, avoiding his gaze. Just, please come with us. Darien unbuckled slowly, rising to his full 6-foot frame. The entire cabin turned to watch, breath held, cameras ready. He didn't say a word. They led him through the aisle and into a narrow utility closet near the galley, barely 6 feet long, 4 feet wide. Metal shelves, a mop bucket, a tang of bleach in the air. It was a cage, and she was waiting. Mallory Kent, arms crossed, her smirk back in place like she'd never lost it. "You're staying here," she said, voice dripping with satisfaction. "Captain says you're a risk." Before he could speak, the door slammed shut behind him. A heavy click echoed, the lock sealing like a verdict. Darien stood still. The engine's hum vibrated through the thin walls. His jacket snagged on an exposed bolt. He'd been here before, not literally, but in every boardroom where his skin made him an outsider, where rising meant resistance. But this was physical, intentional, and it burned deeper. He pulled out his phone. 1 bar, barely a signal, but it was enough. "They've locked me up. Phase 2 now." The reply flashed back quick. "Hold tight." He pocketed the device, jaw clenched, mind racing. Mallory had twisted the narrative. Again, painted his calm as a threat, his rebuttal as a weapon. And the captain had bought it, just like she knew he would. Classic playbook. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. She thought he was just a passenger. She didn't realize he'd built this kingdom. And now she'd handed him every reason to burn her throne to ash. Outside, a wiry man in seat 3B, buzz-cut, cheap suit, fumbled for his phone. His hands shook as he hit record. From his angle, the closet wasn't visible, but Mallory's smug strut back into first class was. Her voice carried down the aisle, arrogant and unguarded. "That's where he belongs." The man uploaded the clip to X, captioned, "Nova Air locking up a first-class passenger. What's going on?" Within minutes, hashtags exploded. Nova Air, Sky Bias, coal-caged retweets climbed. Likes surged. Outrage spread like jet fuel on asphalt. Darien didn't know it yet, but the story was already taking off, and the world was watching. The storage closet on Nova Air Flight 921 was a coffin of steel and shadows. Walls closed in, air stale with chemical sting. Darien Cole stood wedged between a mop bucket and stacked trays, his broad shoulders brushing cold metal. His jacket caught on the bolt again. The lock echoed in his memory. Mallory's parting words still rang. "That's where he belongs." He flexed his fingers. The bruises from Dalton's grip pulsed under his sleeves. But his face? Stone. Outside, the plane sliced through storm clouds. Cabin lights flickered as turbulence rocked the jet. From behind the door, he heard muffled voices. Mallory's voice sliced through, sharp and rallying. "He's trouble," she hissed. "Said he'd sue us all. Got aggressive. I'm not risking it. He can't come back out." Each word layered another brick in the wall she was building to bury him. The lanky male crew member, the same one who'd led him in, murmured something too soft to catch. But the woman with the clipboard snapped back. "Captain's orders. Keep him locked up." Darien's jaw tightened. They weren't crew anymore. They were pawns, and he was the threat she needed to keep her lie alive. He nudged the mop bucket with his foot. The dirty water sloshed. Just 30 minutes ago, he'd been in seat 1A, vindicated, calm, collected. Now, shoved in a closet, again, all because Mallory Kent couldn't stomach the sight of a black man owning the sky. But her story was coming undone. And the turbulence had only just begun. He'd earned that seat, proved it, defended it. But now he was shoved into a closet like luggage no one wanted, all because Mallory Kent couldn't stand the bruise to her ego. Darian Cole had seen this game before, played it in polished boardrooms and on cracked sidewalks where his skin always spoke before he did. But this was his airline, his empire, and she'd just lit a match in the middle of his sky. How long could she hold the lie before it caught fire? A sudden thud rattled the door, heavy, intentional. The hinges jumped, the frame groaning. Darian's eyes narrowed as a voice barked through the metal. "Hey, you in there? Think you're some kind of big shot, huh?" The accent was thick, southern with a sharp edge of contempt. Another blow, harder. The door bowed slightly. "I know your type, boy. Stirring up trouble where you don't belong." He knew that voice. Greg Mathers, ex-cop turned crew member. All muscle, no patience. He'd clocked him earlier in the galley, the kind of guy who walked like every hallway was his beat and every passenger a suspect. Greg's fist slammed the door again. Each punch was a drumbeat of hate. "Open this damn door," he growled. "I'll show you where you belong." But Darian didn't move, his pulse steady, his face calm. He'd heard worse, growing up in Southview, where surviving meant knowing when silence was your armor. Let him talk. Every word was fuel, every insult ammunition. From outside, Greg's boots scuffed the floor, pacing like a caged dog, breathing ragged. "Mallory's right about you," he spat. "Should have tossed you off back in Eastbridge." The plane jolted. Turbulence slammed the fuselage. Greg stumbled into the wall with a grunt, but came back swinging. The door groaned under the strain. Still, Darian said nothing. He reached into his pocket, pulling his tablet from the shadows. The glow of the screen lit his face. Weak signal, but enough. He worked quickly, decades of tech instincts kicking in, sidestepping the crew's firewall with ease. Hacks weren't just for profit. Sometimes they were for survival. He typed a short message to his COO. "They're escalating. Greg's losing it. Leak it." The reply came fast. "Done. It's out now." He slid the tablet away. Another blow rattled the door, but it didn't matter anymore. The world was about to see what Mallory had done, and who she'd unleashed. In the galley, Mallory Kent stood with arms folded, watching Greg's tantrum like it was theater. She'd hand-picked him the moment she locked Darian up. She knew his fuse was short and his temper explosive, perfect for keeping her target quiet or scared. The lanky crew member from earlier hovered nearby, nervously toying with a coffee pot. His eyes kept flicking toward the storage door. "Shouldn't we calm him down?" he mumbled. Mallory shot him a glare that froze his breath. "Let him blow off steam," she said coldly. "Long as it keeps him in check." She didn't care that half the cabin could hear the slurs through the walls, didn't care that phones were out. To her, Darian was a problem, not a person, and Greg was the hammer. But hammers can miss. And this time, hers was about to swing too hard. In first class, the wiry man in 3B, the same one who filmed the earlier confrontation, refreshed his phone. His jaw dropped. The video he posted 30 minutes ago now had hundreds of thousands of views, retweets flying, comments burning. Nova Air, Sky Bias, Darian Cole. He hit record again, his voice low and urgent. "They're still at it," he whispered, camera panning toward the galley. You could hear Greg's shouts, raw and violent. And just past the edge of the curtain, Mallory's silhouette, arms folded, nodding along. The man uploaded it live, and it hit the internet like a Molotov cocktail. Below, back at Nova Air HQ in Brighton, the storm had already broken. In her glass-walled office, Leona Chase sat in front of a wall of screens, one eye on the stock ticker, the other on the spiraling chaos. Her inbox blew up. Alerts from reporters, warnings from PR, messages piling up. The stock price blinked red, down 5%, then 7, 10. She didn't hesitate. The moment Darian's message hit her inbox, she'd leaked it to a trusted journalist, framing it for what it was: Nova Air VIP locked up mid-flight overstaff bias. It was live now. CNN was running with it. Bloomberg had it on the ticker. Social feeds burned with fury. Screens across the country flashed Darian's face and that headline: "The world was watching." And Mallory's lie? It was collapsing. The stock ticker pulsed red, a digital siren blaring across newsrooms and investor dashboards. The internet burned. Inside Nova Air HQ, Leona Chase leaned back in her chair, her smirk razor-sharp as she punched in a call. "Push it harder," she told her PR lead. "Crash their brand before this bird even lands." And it worked. The numbers plunged. Investors dumped stock like it was radioactive. The hashtags flared hotter. Screens worldwide lit up with the truth. In the dark belly of the plane, Darian Cole felt the pitch shift. Another burst of turbulence rattled the metal walls, shaking the floor beneath him. Then, silence. Greg Mather's pounding had stopped, replaced by a stream of curses and a loud clang, as if the man had crashed into a service cart. Darian slid down the closet wall, his back pressing against the cold steel door. The chill bled through his suit. He didn't know the video had exploded, didn't know his message had detonated across every media outlet from Brighton to Tokyo, but he felt it, the way the air around him shifted. Mallory Kent had locked him in, but she'd also handed him the loudest mic in the world. He didn't even have to hold it. Greg's voice growled again. "Closer now. You're done, you hear me? Done." A weaker thud landed on the door. His energy was fading, but his hate still burned hot. Darian closed his eyes for a moment, saw the boardroom he'd built from the ground up, the blueprints, the grit, the sky he'd made his own. And these two, Mallory and Greg, thought they could stuff him into a box and bury him quietly. What they didn't know was the lid was already off, and the whole world was watching. The plane smoothed out, storms outside fading into streaks of moonlit calm. But inside, the real storm was just warming up. The first-class cabin of Flight 921 glowed with a deceptive calm, amber lights casting long shadows across rows of leather and linen. Passengers scrolled their phones or sipped drinks. Some were bored, others were tense, but all still carried the echo of Greg's earlier outburst. Then the door to the crew closet clicked. Darian Cole stepped out, suit wrinkled, hair slightly tousled, but spine straight, his posture unshaken, presence undeniable. Captain Harold Brenner stood waiting near the front, wiry, weathered, a man who'd flown more storms than most men had driven through. "Mr. Cole," he said, voice low and gruff. "HQ cleared you. My apologies for this mess." Darian nodded once, cool and clipped. His arms still ached, but his voice was steel. "Let's just finish the flight. Smooth as ever." He returned to seat 1A. The leather creaked under his weight. The scent of lavender still lingered from the blanket, now soured by what had happened in that closet. Eyes followed him. Some whispered. Some looked away, guilt creeping in. Phones buzzed in laps, notifications rising like sirens. But none of them yet knew what was coming next. Darian pulled out his tablet. The screen lit up with a flood of messages from Leona. "The leak's alive. Stock's down 10%. Proof's out. You're listed, majority shareholder. They're scrambling." He smiled. Barely. But it was enough. They'd locked up the wrong man. And now? The entire Nova Air Board knew exactly who they'd just tried to erase. But Mallory Kent wasn't finished. She emerged from the galley minutes later, a tray of coffee gripped tight in her hands, her blonde ponytail knotted high like a battle flag. Her steps were sharp, her smile brittle, her eyes on fire. She'd heard the captain's call, knew Darien was back in his seat, and it seared through her like acid. She passed the crew, who now avoided her gaze, their silence telling. Her grip on the tray tightened as she stopped at 1A. "Coffee, sir?" she asked sweetly. The venom behind the sugar nearly crackled in the air. Darien looked up, calm on the outside, but instinct burning inside him like a flare. "Sure," he said smoothly. She poured, and just as the cup filled, the pot tilted, spilling scalding hot coffee onto his lap. It hissed through his trousers, burning into his thighs. He flinched, breath catching. But before he could react, she stumbled, setting the tray down with a slight clatter. That's when he heard it. A faint clink. Too sharp, too deliberate. He moved his hand. Too late. His fingers brushed the seat cushion and caught the sting of glass. Shards. Tiny, deliberate slivers hidden beneath the blanket. They sliced into his palm. Blood welled in thin crimson lines. Mallory stepped back, the predator in her rising again. Her smirk returned, just as smug, just as wicked. "Oh," she said lightly. "Must have been an accident." The lie was laughable. But her eyes? They dared him to challenge it. Blood dripped onto the armrest, red against beige, and Darien's jaw tightened, the pain in his hand eclipsed by the fire now fully consuming his chest. She'd just escalated, from sabotage to assault, because he dared to exist in the space she'd decided he didn't belong. And now? The game had changed. Pain had never scared him, but the assumption that he'd fold under it was the insult that burned deepest. Darien Cole wiped the blood from his hand, the napkin soaking red like a warning flare. He met Mallory Kent's eyes again, his voice soft, steady, and cutting as glass. "You're done," he said, a promise wrapped in velvet. Her smirk flickered, then cracked. Her breath caught. And just like that, she turned and retreated, tray in hand, heels clicking like fading gunfire. She thought she'd still won, thought the pain was enough, thought the cuts made her powerful. But Darien had flipped it, turned her weapon into a spotlight, and soon the whole world would see. Across the aisle in seat 2C, a woman with a sleek bob and lawyer's poise watched it all unfold, every inch of it. Elena Price, mid-40s, civil rights attorney, sharp as a blade, steady as steel. She'd seen it from the beginning, the confrontation at the gate, the shove, the trap, the burn, and now the blood. Her fingers tightened around her phone, already recording. Around her, passengers shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away, others whispered, but Elena leaned forward, her voice clear and low. "Mr. Cole, I'm a lawyer. That was assault. I can file suit against Nova Air right here, right now." She tapped her screen, going live on X. The stream lit up. "Flight 921. Nova Air," she announced, documenting a first-class passenger assaulted by crew. The view count ticked up instantly. Darien glanced over, his mind still racing, but the pain was dulling into something useful, something focused. "Appreciate it," he said quietly, his voice calm, his eyes locked on the future. "Let's see where this goes." Her stream exploded. Comments flooded in, hashtags reignited. Nova Air Abuse, Darien Cole, Sky Justice. In the cabin, phones came out like spotlights. Passengers began filming again, some toward Mallory, who now hovered in the galley like a shadow too proud to vanish. He leaned back in his seat, blood still dripping onto the now crumpled napkin in his hand. But he didn't flinch. He let the storm build. He let the trap she set become her own. In the galley, Mallory Kent slammed the tray down hard enough to rattle silverware. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but rage. Rage twisted with a strange satisfaction. She'd drawn blood. She'd branded him. In her mind, that was a win. Greg Mathers lumbered into view. His hulking frame filled the galley doorway, his face still flushed from earlier outbursts. "You get him?" he asked, cracking his knuckles like it was a warm-up. Mallory nodded, her smirk creeping back like a disease. "Coffee. Glass." "He's bleeding," she whispered. "Let's see him act like a big shot now." Greg chuckled, a low, ugly sound. But not everyone in the crew was buying it. The lanky crew member nearby, the same one who'd hesitated earlier, backed away slightly, his face pale. "That's messed up," he muttered. But Mallory ignored him. She was locked in, focused, poised to finish the job. Back at Nova Air HQ in Brighton, chaos bled across the boardroom like wildfire. Leona Chase stood at the head of the room, the stock ticker behind her plummeting, 15% down, then 17. She'd seen Elena's live stream moments ago, Darian's bloodied hand flashing across screens nationwide, Mallory's smirk frozen in frame, Greg's rant echoing through the feed. She grabbed her phone and dialed her media team. "Push the shareholder proof," she ordered, her voice slicing through the room. "Every outlet. Hard. Now." The team moved fast, releasing official documentation that Darian Cole wasn't just a passenger. He owned Nova Air. His name blazed across breaking banners. CNN cut to it. MSNBC ran the headline on loop. Nova Air majority shareholder assaulted mid-flight by crew. Back on Flight 921, Darian flexed his wounded hand. The bleeding was slowing, the pain dulling into something familiar, a slow, simmering fury. Beside him, Elena's live stream buzzed, her voice firm and composed as she narrated the timeline of Mallory's assault. The viewership climbed into the tens of thousands. He glanced toward the galley, saw Mallory's silhouette, her whispering to Greg, their heads bent like conspirators. They thought the blood was his defeat, thought the pain was proof. But what they didn't see, what they'd never see, was that Darian had already turned their last attack into his next move. The plane cruised steady through the clouds, cabin lights flickering as another wave of turbulence rocked the fuselage. But Darian didn't move, didn't blink. His grin widened. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, tight, clipped. "Folks, we're hitting some rough air. Stay buckled," passengers murmured. Seatbelts clicked. Phones stayed rolling. But Darian knew where the real turbulence was. It wasn't outside the windows. It was in Brighton, where the boardroom walls were shaking, where executives were shouting into phones, watching the empire burn. Mallory's assault gave him leverage. Elena's stream gave him witnesses. Leona's leak gave him power. He hadn't lifted a finger since stepping onto the plane, but he'd already flipped the script. Still, he knew her kind. She wouldn't stop. Her pride was a monster, and monsters don't die quietly. Some monsters don't die quietly. The blood on Darian Cole's napkin? That was just the start. What would Mallory Kent do when she realized the world was watching her unravel? 32 floors above Brighton, Nova Air's glass tower glowed like a burning fuse against the midnight skyline. Inside, the boardroom pulsed with rising panic. Sweat on brows, ties loosened, laptops thrown open. The room stank of stale coffee and corporate fear. Outside, the city glittered. Inside, the ticker bled red. Shares down 15%, then 18%. Every drop a blade against the airline's throat. At the head of the chaos stood Leona Chase, blazer sharp, her expression sharper, unshaken, unapologetic. She'd just unleashed the proof, leaked documents showing Darian Cole, the man they'd locked in a closet, burned and bloodied, was Nova Air's majority shareholder. And now the world knew. Across the boardroom table, Chairman Elias Vaughn, silver hair and the fury of an old lion, slammed his fist so hard the table shuddered. "How did we not know he was on that flight?" he roared. "How did some flight attendant crash our stock like this?" His jowls quivered, voice shaking the walls. But Leona didn't blink. She met his fury with ice. "You didn't need to know," she said coolly. "Darian handles his business quietly, until someone forces his hand. Mallory Kent did that." Silence snapped into place. Every screen in the room flickered. The image of Elena Price's live stream, Darian's bloodied hand on screen, the hashtag Nova Racism trending like wildfire. Vaughn's face turned purple. Before he could explode, an assistant burst in, breathless. "She's fired," he said. "Emails out. Mallory's off the plane." At 30,000 feet above Texas, Flight 921 hummed with a tension so thick it ached. Phones glowed, passengers whispered. The internet was burning. In seat 1A, Darian sat back, his napkin-wrapped hand resting on the armrest, the coffee stain on his lap now a badge of Mallory's spite. Across the aisle, Elena's live stream continued. "This is what Nova Air allows," she said, steady and grim. "Assault at 30,000 feet. Darian flexed his bandaged fingers. The pain? Still there, but it pulsed with purpose. His eyes dropped to his phone. A message from Leona flashed. "Board folding? You're free. Mallory's out." He smirked, leaning back. The leather creaked beneath him. Victory tasted sweet, but it wasn't over. He knew Mallory, knew her kind didn't go down quiet. In the galley, Mallory Kent stared at a glowing screen. Her fingers trembled. The email from HR read like a gunshot. Effective immediately. Terminated for misconduct. Exit aircraft upon landing. Her breath caught. 7 years. From economy to first class. She'd bent this job into her throne. And now they were tossing her out like trash? No. Mallory's lip curled. She tapped rapidly on the crew tablet, intercepting the termination email with a trick an old tech-savvy boyfriend had taught her. Deleted it before it reached the captain's inbox. Her smirk returned, fragile but fierce. They'd never know she saw it. She slipped the tablet into a drawer, grabbed her phone, and texted Greg Mathers. "Meet me in economy. We're not done." He replied instantly. "Hell yeah." Back in first class, Darian felt it, that shift in the air. A ripple of unease, the kind that slid under skin like ice. He glanced at Elena, whose stream ticked past 50,000 live viewers. She met his gaze, gave him a small nod. They understood each other now. This wasn't just about revenge. This was exposure. This was power. He grabbed his phone and texted one word to Leona. "Shut it down." Her response came in seconds. On it. In Brighton, Leona's team launched the code. Fake traffic flooded Nova Air's booking servers. The website crashed. Airports from New York to LA scrambled, flights delayed, passengers furious. The stock ticker dropped another 3%, 20% down. The empire quaked beneath Darian's fingertips. He didn't know the full scope yet, but he could feel the tremor. Meanwhile, Mallory made her move. She strode down the aisle like she still owned it, her ponytail swinging like a warning. Behind her, Greg Mathers followed, massive and silent, shoving past a nervous flight attendant who didn't dare speak. Halfway down the cabin, Mallory stopped. Her eyes landed on a red-faced man in a sweat-stained stockman's hat, his boots kicked across the aisle. Bo Redding, oil tycoon, old money, entitled Rage in human form. She leaned in close, her voice low. Poisoned, honey? That guy in first class? She nodded toward the front of the plane. He's a fraud. Got me fired with lies. Gonna ruin this airline. Bo's face twisted. His hand clenched around his whiskey cup. Not on my watch, he growled. She smiled. Hook set. Within minutes, she whispered to 4 more passengers. A trucker with calloused hands. A church lady with a cross necklace. A frat boy with too much confidence. A middle manager in a cheap blazer. Each nodded. Their faces hardened. She'd built a mob. She'd lost her job, lost the board. But she still had the cabin. And Mallory Kent? She was about to burn the whole thing down. In the narrow aisle of Flight 921, Chaos wore a cowboy hat. Bo Redding, cousin of Chairman Elias Vaughn, stormed down the economy cabin like he owned the air itself. Loud, red-faced, reeking of power and bourbon, he'd flown Nova Air for years, his oil money buying more than just tickets. Now he was Mallory Kent's final card. She leaned in, voice a venom-laced whisper. That guy up in first class? Total fraud. Got me fired with lies. You really gonna let someone like him ruin this airline? Bo's eyes narrowed, his meaty fist wrapped tight around a whiskey glass. Hell no, he growled, tossing the drink back. She moved fast, whispering to others she'd scouted in her earlier walk. A weathered truck driver with cracked knuckles. A pearl-clutching woman in a cardigan and crucifix. A frat bro in a hoodie with a backward cap. A middle-aged executive with thinning hair and a clipboard face. Each nod was a match on gasoline. Mallory spun her tale, twisting Darien into a con artist, a threat, a danger to their comfort zone. Greg Mathers loomed beside her, cracking his knuckles, his earlier slurs echoing in his mind. Within minutes, they weren't just passengers. They were a mob. Bo Redding stood first, his stockman's hat casting a long shadow. "Let's get that bastard out of there," he bellowed. The others rose like thunder behind him, a ragged chorus of self-righteous fury. In first class, Darien Cole felt it. The rumble, the shift in pressure. Elena Price's stream caught it too, her camera panning as the curtain between cabins burst open. There they came. Bo Redding at the front, swaggering like a sheriff. Greg Mathers right behind, fists flexing. Mallory Kent, trailing with her signature smirk, eyes locked on her target. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Some passengers shrank into their seats. Others raised phones. A modern-day lynch mob, inflamed by whispers and entitlement. Darien sat still, his hand bandaged, his body bruised, but his gaze sharp. He locked eyes with Bo. The oil tycoon's whiskey breath washed over him, sour and loud. "You don't belong here," Bo spat. "Time to go back where you came from." Darien didn't move. His silence was a blade. He knew this wasn't about policy or passes. This was Mallory's hate weaponized. She'd lost the board, the job, the facade. But now she wanted blood. "Y'all seeing this?" The live stream echoed. "Comment 1 if you're screaming at Mallory's audacity. Comment 2 if you think Darien should have seen it coming, like if you're watching this plane turn into a war zone. Subscribe to see what justice looks like in real time." The first-class cabin of Nova Flight 921 crackled with tension. The air was sharp with spilled liquor and something darker. Bo Redding loomed over 1A, his voice a growl. "Think you're some big shot? Sitting here like you own the place?" His next word, "boy," hit like a bullet wrapped in history. Darien flinched inward but didn't show it. He'd heard that word since Atlanta street corners. He'd survived worse than this. The trucker cracked his knuckles. The cross-clutching woman muttered, "Should have stayed in his place." The frat kid giggled, filming like it was a TikTok fight. The exec nodded, like this was just another business vote. Behind them all, Mallory stood smug, her ponytail twitching like a tail before a strike. Darian's voice cut through the tension. "You're on my plane. Back. Off." Bo's face flushed deeper. He lunged forward, shoving Darian's shoulder. "Prove it, liar!" he roared. Spit flew, phones rose, gasps erupted. The cabin hit flashpoint. Across the aisle, Elena Price whispered into her mic, "They're attacking him now. Flight 921. Nova Air." Her viewer count surged past 70,000. Comments screamed, "This is a hate crime. Arrest Mallory. Darian is the CEO." But Darian was faster. Years of judo from back alley Atlanta kicked in. He grabbed Bo's wrist mid-shove, twisted hard, and flipped the tycoon across the aisle. Bo crashed into seat 2B with a grunt. His stockman's hat spun away like a broken crown. His whiskey glass shattered on the carpet, amber pooling like blood. The mob gasped. And then the fight began. The Stetson had rolled like a tumbleweed under seat 3D as Bo Redding's whiskey glass shattered on impact, amber liquid spreading like a bruise across the carpet. Next came the trucker, fists like cinder blocks, swinging wide for Darian Cole's jaw. But Darian dipped low, sharp and sudden, driving an elbow into the man's gut. The air whooshed out of him in a gasp, and he folded like a tarp in the wind. From behind, the pearl-clutching woman shrieked, "He's violent!" Her crucifix swung wildly as she backed off. The frat kid kept filming, the smirk gone, replaced with nervous laughter. Then Greg Mathers charged, a bull in Nova Air blue. His full weight slammed Darian against the window, the plastic rattling in protest. Pain tore through his ribs. The coffee burn on his thighs reignited like fire. Greg's forearm pinned his throat. "Got you now," Greg growled. His breath stank of chew and malice. His free fist rose, cocked and shaking with rage. Darian's vision blurred. The cuts on his hands screamed, but his focus never wavered. He gripped Greg's forearm, twisted, and broke the hold with raw power. Greg stumbled back. Then the exec lunged from the side, hands clawing at Darian's blazer, yanking him sideways. The mob swarmed, fists, voices, violence. It was a storm fed by Mallory Kent's lies and their own cracked pride. Across the aisle, Elena Price's live stream shook wildly as she stood up yelling, "This is assault! Somebody stop this!" Passengers stirred, some filming, some frozen, the cabin now a war zone at 30,000 feet. Darian fought back. Judo again, precise and brutal. He flipped the exec with a lock, slammed the frat kid into the seat back. But Greg came again, tackled him, slammed him down. The carpet burned Darian's cheek as his body hit hard. His hand, still bandaged, scraped raw against the floor. Greg's knee pressed into his spine. Breath gone. Bones screaming. Bo Redding staggered up, lips split and glistening red. "Hold him down!" he bellowed. Behind him, Mallory Kent stepped in, her voice a viper's hiss. "See? Told you he was trouble." In seat 4A, a teenage girl in a hoodie sat frozen, dark braids swinging as her hands trembled. She'd seen it all. The closet, the coffee, the blood. Now this. Her thumb slammed, "Live. They're beating him up. Nova Air Flight 921. This is insane." Her stream went live, fast. 50,000 views, then 100,000. Nova Air racism exploded. Outrage screamed across timelines. "This is a hate crime. Shut Nova down. Who is this man they're attacking?" At Nova HQ in Dallas, Leona Chase's war room lit up like a Christmas tree. The teenage girl's stream flashed next to Elena's. 2 angles, 2 infernos. The stock plummeted, now 25% down. Her phone rang nonstop. CNN, MSNBC, Reuters. She barked into the phone, "Push the shareholder angle harder. I want his face on every feed before wheels down." Within minutes, Darian's photo, sharp in a Navy suit, hit every news site. Nova Air majority owner assaulted mid-flight by crew and passengers. In the boardroom, Elias Vaughn roared, "We're dead. Fix this." Back in the sky, Darian twisted hard, driving a heel into Greg's shin. The ex-cop howled and fell sideways. Darian rose, bruised, bleeding, suit torn, but eyes still burning. Bo swung again, a wild punch. Darian dodged, then shoved him back into the trucker. Both crashed into a tray cart with a clatter. The woman with the crucifix shrieked. The frat kid kept filming, but now his hands shook. Greg lunged one last time. Darian stepped aside. Greg hit the bulkhead with a hollow thud, the plane itself seeming to wince. Mallory Kent stood at the edge of the chaos, smirking, until she wasn't. Her mob crumbled. The tide had turned. Passengers were on their feet now, yelling, "Enough! Get them off! This is wrong! Phones everywhere!" Elena's voice cut through the noise. "This has to stop." And the teen stream? 1 million views. And climbing. Darian Cole stood tall, blood on his lip, cuts on his hand, but fire in his voice. He turned slowly, eyes locking on Mallory Kent. "Your move," he said, low, dangerous, unshaken. Mallory froze. Her smirk cracked. The chessboard had flipped, and she was the one out of time. On the ground, Nova terminals across Houston, Dallas, and Austin erupted in protests. Signs rose. Justice for Darian, grounded by Hate No More Nova. The teenage girl lit the match. Elena fanned the flames, and now the whole world was watching. Elena Price's live stream didn't blink. Neither did Darian Cole. He watched as the footage detonated across the internet, Mallory Kent's words echoing through Nova Air Flight 921 like a curse on loop. "He's trouble. Doesn't belong up there. Should have tossed him off in Houston." The audio cracked like thunder, and the plane, 30,000 feet above Texas, shuddered in silence. Darian stood at the galley's edge, his body bruised, lip split, suit torn at the shoulder. Blood clung dry beneath his collar. Greg Mathers loomed over him, zip ties dangling like trophies from one fat fist. Bo Redding, face red, Stetson now tilted like a crown of failure, panted at the counter. Behind them, Mallory Kent smirked, though her hands trembled. The mob had failed. The crew had backed away. But still, she thought this was her last swing. "Hands out!" Greg growled, teeth yellow and breath thick with chew. "You're done." Darian lifted his hands slowly. Palms up, unbothered. "All right," he said, his voice low and calm, but beneath it, steel. Greg grinned, a predator's grin. The zip ties cinched tight, slicing into already cut skin, plastic grinding bone. Bo chuckled. "Should have done this sooner." Mallory's smirk returned, lips tight, blue eyes wild. She thought this was the finish line. They led Darian back into the galley, pushed him against a metal counter, his ribs screaming. Claire Price's stream kept rolling, her voice tight. "They're tying him up. This is insane." Across the aisle, the teenage girl in 4A kept filming, her feed now at 2 million views. Tears welled, but she held the shot. Someone stop this. Darian caught her gaze. A flicker. Just enough. He had one move left. The mob thought he was done, but he'd played this out in his head, 3 steps ahead, the whole time. During the scuffle, he'd palmed his tablet, slid it under his waistband. Now, hands tied in front, he shifted, fingers brushing the device. Blind typing, pure instinct, tech mastery. A hack he'd built himself during Nova Air's earliest days. The intercom. Mallory didn't see. Too busy gloating, too busy losing. But the lanky crew member at the coffee pot noticed. Eyes wide. Whispered, "What's he doing?" Mallory snapped. "Shut up. Too late." The intercom hissed. A burst of static. And then her voice, her venom, her recorded rant from hours ago. "He's trouble. Doesn't belong up there. Should have tossed him off in Houston." Then Greg's voice. "Know your type, boy. The slurs, the hate, raw, undeniable. Broadcast for every ear on the plane. Gasps, every row. Phones dropped. Eyes snapped toward the galley. A woman in 3D clutched her necklace. A businessman in 5B stood up, shouting, "This is a disgrace." A mother in 18A hugged her kid tight and whispered, "She can't stay here." Elena's stream blew up. Her camera swung toward the ceiling speakers. "That's her. That's what she said." The teen's live feed exploded. "She's a racist. Nova is trash. Justice for Darian." The cabin erupted, shouting, filming, demands. Passengers surged to their feet. Mallory Kent's smirk broke. For the first time, she looked afraid. Darian Cole stood silent, bound, bloodied, but tall. He'd turned their violence into a broadcast, their words into evidence, their hate into his weapon. Mallory Kent froze, her smirk shattered. Her face drained to ash as her own hateful words looped again and again over the plane's intercom. A glitch in Darian Cole's code, turning the system into her confessional. "He's trouble. Doesn't belong up there. Should have tossed him off in Houston." Her eyes snapped to him. Still bound, still bloodied, but somehow still fighting. "You!" she shrieked, eyes wild. She lunged. A fire extinguisher ripped from the wall. Passengers screamed. The red canister arced through the air like a weapon, slamming into Darian's ribs with a sickening crunch. Two broke instantly. Pain exploded white-hot, a flood that stole his breath. He gasped, coughed blood. Greg Mathers grabbed Mallory's arm, growling, "Enough!" But she ripped free, eyes wild, breath ragged. "He deserves it!" she howled. The extinguisher clattered to the floor. Darian slumped against the galley counter. Vision blurred, ribs shattered, zip ties biting deep. But he lifted his head, met her stare. "You're finished," he rasped, blood staining his teeth. His voice was a blade. Passengers surged from their seats, phones up, shouts a wall of sound. "Call the captain! She assaulted him! He's bleeding!" Elena Price's live stream spiked to 3 million views. "She just attacked him again," she barked into her phone, camera aimed at Mallory's trembling hands. Across the aisle, the teenage girl sobbed on her feed. "He's hurt bad. This is crazy." Captain Jude Ellis burst from the cockpit, his silver hair wild, his eyes furious. "What the hell is going on?" he snapped. Bo Redding shrank back. The tough guy oil tycoon, now silent, red-faced. The lanky crew member pointed at Mallory, trembling. She hit him. With that. He gestured at the extinguisher rolling on the floor. Ellis's eyes, locked on Darian, slumped and bleeding. "Jesus!" He snatched his radio. "Austin Tower, this is Nova Air Flight 921. We need immediate emergency landing. We've got a violent incident on board." A crackled reply. "Runway's clear. You're cleared to descend." The plane tilted fast. Turbulence hit. Passengers clutched armrests. But this time, the fear wasn't from the sky. It was from within. Mallory backed into the galley wall, shaking, her smirk gone. Her eyes darted, calculating escape. The crew stepped away from her. Greg's fists unclenched, his voice barely a whisper. "You're crazy." Even he had limits. Bo slinked away, retreating to economy. His makeshift mob dissolved, their courage drowned by the weight of a recording. The lanky attendant whispered to Captain Ellis. She lied. About all of it. Darian Cole coughed, pain slicing every breath. Still upright, still watching. The extinguisher lay at his feet, a twisted, dented testament to her desperation. She'd tried to erase him. Instead, she'd amplified him, turned her hate into her noose. Moments later, on the ground, Austin Bergstrom Airport. The plane screeched to a halt, tarmac shimmering under harsh floodlights. The night was thick with heat and jet fuel. Darian stumbled onto the runway, escorted but not defeated. His suit shredded, lip split, ribs broken. But his eyes blazing. Behind him, the cabin spilled open, a flood of stunned passengers, phones raised, still recording. Sirens wailed. Police cruisers roared across the tarmac, lights strobing red and blue. A dozen officers leapt out, radios hissing, boots slamming. Mallory Kent emerged next, her blonde ponytail limp, uniform stained, face twisted in fury and disbelief. Greg Mathers followed, shoulders slumped, the swagger drained from him like fuel from a leaking tank. Captain Ellis barked, "Separate them, now!" The scene exploded into controlled chaos. The terminal pulsed with movement. Elena's stream rolled on, her voice clear. "We're on the ground, he's bleeding, and they're still after him." Across the crowd, the teenage girl in the hoodie stepped onto the tarmac. Her feed? Over 5 million views. Her voice cracked, but it was strong. This is what happens when they think they can get away with it. But he didn't fold. He's still standing. Elena Price's feed surged past 4 million views, her voice trembling with fury. They won't leave him alone. The tarmac was no longer just pavement. It was a stage. Every move caught in the world's spotlight. 2 cops approached the chaos. One, Sergeant Raul Ruiz, a grizzled veteran whose voice was gravel from years of shouting over sirens. The other, a lanky, buzz-cut rookie, his eyes too sharp, hand too close to his holster. They grabbed Mallory Kent first. Her wrists jerked back into cuffs. "You're under arrest for assault," Ruiz snapped. Mallory twisted, her voice shrill. "This is a mistake. He attacked me." Her lies dissolved under the weight of a plane full of phones and witnesses, but her eyes flicked to Darian Cole, promising she wasn't finished. Greg Mathers went next. "I didn't do nothing," he muttered, hands up as cuffs clicked shut. But Darian sensed it. A shift, a deeper threat. The rookie officer's gaze lingered too long on him. His fingers toyed with the holster like a threat dressed as a habit. Bo Redding, red-faced and still bleeding, swaggered out last. His Stetson askew, his shirt stained. He sauntered up to Ruiz, slid him a wad of cash, leaned in with a whisper that wasn't soft enough. "That guy's the real problem. Frame him for assault. Make it stick." Ruiz hesitated, his jaw clenched. Then he pocketed the money, nodded once. The lanky cop stepped forward, grabbed Darian's arms, still zip-tied, and yanked hard. Pain shot through his shoulder. "You're coming too. Assault on a passenger." "Let's go," the cop sneered. Darian staggered, his ribs screamed, but he smirked through the blood. "Check the footage. You're digging your own grave." The cop shoved him toward the patrol car. Zip ties cut deeper. Blood trickled down his hand. Passengers screamed, "He's the victim! What are you doing?" Phones rolled. Elena's stream hit 5 million. "They're framing him now," she said, her voice ice. "Corrupt cops on Nova Air's payroll." The teen girl's feed swelled with fury. This isn't justice. Bo stood on the sidelines, smirking. He thought he'd won. On the ground, if not in the sky. Mallory, cuffed beside him, caught his eye. A flicker of shared triumph passed between them. They'd lost the plane. But maybe, just maybe, they'd buried Darien. His face hit the patrol car's side, cheek against the hot metal, breath shallow, pain flaring like firecrackers in his ribs. The rookie leaned in, voice low. "Should have stayed quiet, pal." Darien didn't flinch. He'd seen this play before. Wealth twisting justice, color turning truth into crime. But just as it seemed over, it wasn't. A black SUV screeched onto the tarmac, tires smoking, doors flying open. Lena Carter stepped out, her navy blazer crisp, her heels snapping with purpose. Behind her, 3 lawyers flanked her like shields, briefcases in hand, eyes sharp as blades. "Let him go," Lena commanded, her voice a whip crack across the sirens. She shoved a tablet into Ruiz's chest. Its screen glowed with official ownership documents. Darien's name, bold, clear. He's Nova Air's majority shareholder. "You're arresting the wrong man." Ruiz froze. His hand twitched. The cash in his pocket suddenly radioactive. But the rookie cop sneered. "Don't care who he is? He's mine." Back in Dallas, the Nova Air boardroom erupted. Victor Grayson's phone buzzed. A breaking email from legal, Bo Redding, terminated effective immediately. His cousin had just been cut loose, a scapegoat thrown overboard to save the sinking ship. The stock dropped again, now 35% down. Back on the tarmac, the legal team swarmed. Darien's zip ties snapped free, his wrists red and raw. "You good?" Lena asked, her voice tight. "Better now?" he rasped, blood staining his shirt, but spirit unshaken. Mallory Kent watched from the patrol car, her hands still cuffed, her jaw clenched, her hate far from gone. Glass doors at the terminal burst open. Hundreds of protesters surged out. Signs flashing, "Free Darien, End Nova Corruption." "No more silence in the sky" chants shook the air. "Justice now! Justice now!" The world had watched. The girl's stream had sparked it. Elena had fanned the flames. And now? Austin burned with outrage. Darien Cole straightened, his ribs aching, his lip bleeding. But his smile? Lethal, calm, final. The tide had turned. Now it was time to decide who would survive it. Steel cuffs rattled as the crowd on the tarmac roared behind them. Mallory Kent's face twisted, not in regret, but rage. Bo Redding slunk toward a waiting cab, his Stetson pulled low, but his mind spinning with the next move. On the radio, the lanky officer muttered, "He's loose, but we'll get him downtown." Darien Cole didn't hear it, but he felt it, the noose tightening again. Even as the chants rang out, justice for Darien, even as he stood tall, bloodied but not broken, he knew the war wasn't over. The Austin precinct, 2:19 a.m. Concrete walls, flickering fluorescence, air thick with old sweat, stale coffee, and spite. The holding cell reeked of hopelessness. Darien sat on a narrow bench, his suit torn, ribs screaming, lip crusted with dried blood from the blow of a fire extinguisher. The zip-tie marks still burned around his wrists, cut free by Lena, but never truly gone. Graffiti lined the walls like ghost stories, tales of men locked away before the world could see their truth. Somewhere in the city, Bo Redding was already working his next hit. The moment he'd been cuffed, he'd called in a favor. A baggage handler, buried in debts and old charges, slipped a bag of coke into Darien's luggage from the private jet. A whisper to the right ears. A call to an old friend in robes, Judge Harlan Tate. A name spoken in fear in South Austin. Thin, sharp-featured, and cold as stone, Tate had made a career crushing black men on half-truths and full lies. Bo's voice on the line had been low, deliberate. Frame him right. Assault ain't enough. Drugs? That'll bury him. Tate had chuckled. 10 years minimum. Done. Back at the station, Officer Briggs strolled past Darian's cell, buzz-cut gleaming, grin like a wolf. He dangled a plastic bag outside the bars. "Guess what we found, hotshot? Welcome to rock bottom." Darian's eyes narrowed. "You planted that. It won't stick." Briggs sneered, leaning closer. "Judge Tate says otherwise. Solitary's ready. Enjoy." He slammed the door with a metallic clang that echoed like a sentence. The bail hearing, 3:12 a.m. A cramped courtroom with peeling walls and stale air. Judge Harlan Tate perched on the bench like a gargoyle, his eyes sharp slits of judgment. Darian stood uncuffed now, but bruised, his ribs throbbing beneath his shredded blazer. Briggs stood beside him, smug and still. Lena Carter sat in the gallery, legal team at her side. Phones buzzed, reporters whispered. Tate ignored them all. Darian Cole, charged with possession with intent to distribute, Tate rasped. Bail denied, remanded to custody. His gavel dropped. A gunshot in the silence. Lena jumped to her feet. "This is a setup. We have proof. Wire transfers, recordings, the bribe to Ruiz." Tate didn't blink. No admissible evidence presented. He turned to Briggs. "Take him." Briggs's grip bruised anew as he yanked Darian from the room. Outside the courthouse, Elena Price's live stream, still rolling, hit 6 million views. "They're railroading him," she snapped, her voice vibrating with rage. The teen girl's feed echoed. "He's innocent. Back in solitary, 6 feet wide, 8 feet long. Concrete tomb. A slit of moonlight from above the wall." Darian slumped, his breath shallow. Blood smeared from his hand reopened during the scuffle. His ribs ached with each inhale, the extinguisher's blow pulsing in memory. The drugs were a lie, but the sentence would be real. 10 years, maybe more. He had flipped the mob, turned the tarmac. But now, the system, the real one, had its claws in deep. Bo's money, Tate's gavel, Briggs' lies. And now he sat in the dark, but not broken. Outside, protesters were still marching, live streams still burning across the country. But inside, the silence was a threat, a promise. And Darian Cole was planning his next move. He'd survived the flight, the mob, the tarmac. But this was the system's deepest cut, where Darian Cole's body bled. The system bled deeper. Concrete bars and cold silence weren't just punishment. They were part of a legacy, racial injustice carved into steel. Nova Air's Crisis War Room, 3:17 a.m. Lena Carter paced like a general on the edge of war, her heels clicking across tile, her eyes never blinking. Her team was a blur, fingers flying across keyboards, screens flickered with flight logs, facial recognition hits, hacked voice memos, security footage stitched together a damning mosaic. One audio clip hit like a bomb. "Frame him good, Harlan. Drugs'll bury him." Bo Redding's drawl. Judge Tate's grunt of agreement. It leaked online in seconds. Elena Price sharing it with a caption that exploded. "Oil tycoon bribes judge to frame airline owner." This is America? The stock ticker turned redder. Nova Air, 40% down and still falling. Lena gripped her phone. Dialed Darian's burner. "We've got the call. We're coming for you." But there was nothing, just silence. The cell, 3:24 a.m. Solitary, where dreams went to die. The air smelled of mold, old sweat, and rusted failure. The walls slick with humidity, the silence deafening. Darian Cole leaned against a cracked bench, his suit now blood-stained tatters, his ribs a screaming mess from the fire extinguisher's blow, his breath shallow, his jaw clenched, every inch of him hurt. But his mind, sharper than ever. Then footsteps, heavy, unrushed, boots echoing in the narrow corridor. The door creaked open, light spilled in. A broad-shouldered guard stepped inside, late 40s, salt and pepper stubble, his face hard, but not cruel. Cole? Name's Vickers. Used to run Nova Air Security. Darian sat up, eyes locked. Then why am I still in this cell? Vickers didn't answer, just looked back down the hall, then slid something through the bars. A burner phone. I heard the judge's call. I've got logs, tapes, witnesses. Use this. Hope had a weight, and it burned in Darian's palm. The glow from the screen was faint, but to him it was sunrise. He tapped out the message with trembling hands. Got a source. Push harder. Lena's reply came in seconds. On it. Hang tight. Vickers nodded once, then vanished into the dark. Elsewhere in Austin? Bo Redding sat in a dive bar off I-35, his Stetson tossed on the table, a sweaty whiskey glass in hand. His phone buzzed, Victor Grayson's name flashing. You're done? Cut off unless you fix this. Bo's smirk returned. He dialed again. Tate, double down. Lock him in deeper. I'll pay more. Tate's rasp came through like gravel. Solitary's just the start. He's gone. They didn't know. Didn't know Vickers had flipped. Didn't know the weapon was already in Darian's hand. Didn't know the world was watching. The burner buzzed again. Lena, hack the grid. Get me out. Darian's fingers shook, but his fire stayed steady. Power's going down in 10. Be ready. The countdown, 10 minutes to freedom outside. 8 million views. Protests stretching from Houston to Denver. Elena Price's stream, still climbing. The teen girl's feed, the flame that refused to dim. Inside, Darian paced the 6A8 cell, each step a needle in his side. But he didn't stop. Couldn't. Then, the hum of electricity changed. Lights flickered. The buzz in the halls shifted. Nova Air's servers were frying under Lena's cyber assault, circuit after circuit collapsing. A final flicker. Then darkness. A blackout. Sirens shrieked. What the hell? Guards stumbled, doors slammed, flashlights danced, and in the chaos, Darian Cole stood, beaten, bleeding, but alive, and finally uncaged. The cell door clicked. A faint spark lit the lock as the hacked system glitched. Darian Cole shoved it open, metal groaning against concrete. Freedom. But it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. He slipped into the corridor, shadows swallowing him whole. The burner phone's glow lit his path through chaos. Empty cells, guards shouting, the precinct cracking like old stone. From the far hall, Vickers emerged, uniform torn, breath short, eyes focused. This way, he hissed, tossing Darian a keyring. Back exits clear. Go! Darian nodded. Pain shot through his ribs with every step, but he moved, faster than fear, stronger than pain. They hit a stairwell, boots hammering downward. Sirens wailed from outside. Flashes of red and blue sliced through the bars. Tate's audio is with your team, Vickers whispered. Bo Redding's done. They reached the door, a rusted slab of steel. Darian jammed the key in, twisted, pushed. The door groaned open, and they spilled into the alley. Night air slammed into them, thick with storm and fury. The roar of protesters rumbled in the distance. Freedom hit like a lightning bolt, and it lasted 5 seconds. Headlights flared. A black van tore out of the shadows, tires screeching, engine howling. 3 men jumped out, leather jackets, fists clenched. Bo's last card, oil money wrapped in violence. The leader, a bear of a man with a scar dragging across his cheek, raised a bat. "End of the line, Cole." Darien dodged, the bat splintering the corner of a dumpster. He stumbled, ribs on fire, vision swimming, but his focus sharp. Vickers lunged, tackling the second man, fists flying. The third, bald brass knuckles, landed a blow that cracked Darien's arm. The bone snapped like dry wood. Agony exploded. He screamed, but pivoted, using his good elbow to drive into the attacker's jaw, sending him down cold. Scarface swung again. The bat hit Darien's shoulder. He crumpled. Blood spilled from his mouth, dark and hot. But Vickers wasn't down. He broke free, slammed the wiry goon into pavement, then crashed into Scarface mid-swing. "Go!" he roared, his voice a cannon blast through the alley. Then a shout from the street. "He's here!" The protesters had arrived. Dozens, their signs catching moonlight. Justice for Darien. End Nova's corruption. They surged into the alley, fists clenched, phones rolling. A human wall between Darien and the mercenaries. Some swung, some filmed. All stood their ground. Darien staggered up, his broken arm cradled, blood dripping onto wet asphalt. But he stayed on his feet, alive. Vickers stumbled over, face bloodied, uniform ripped. "I've got more," he rasped. He shoved a USB into Darien's palm. "Nova's dirty secrets. Redding's just the start." The flash drive pulsed in his hand, like a bomb counting down. Darien smirked through the pain. "You're one of us now." Sirens screamed louder. Cops flooded the alley, patrol cars skidding to a stop, doors flying open. Batons raised, flashlights blinding. Protesters locked arms in front of Darien, roaring, "Protect him!" Vickers stepped up, planting himself between Darien and the cops. "I'm with him," he shouted, badge raised. Bo Redding paid Judge Tate. "Check the tapes." One officer paused, baton lowering. The alley froze. Tension split the night. Inside a war room in Dallas, Lena Carter watched through hacked feeds. Her team roared as the footage streamed live. Elena Price's feed spiked past 10 million views, her voice a war cry. He's out, and they're fighting for him. The teen girl's stream surged, tears gone, fists clenched. He's still standing. They can't stop him. Nova Air's stock dropped another 10%, 50% down. The board in full collapse. Bo Redding saw the alert from a cab. Whiskey spilled as he snarled, "Get him back, now!" Back in the alley, Darien collapsed against the brick wall. His broken arm throbbed, ribs screaming, blood pooling at his feet. But he smiled. The USB burned in his palm. A grenade of truth. He'd slipped Bo's trap. Again. And now, the reckoning was coming. Protesters flooded the courthouse steps. Their chants roared like thunder as Darien Cole staggered through the back entrance of the building, his broken arm cradled in a makeshift sling torn from Vickers' bloodied shirt. His ribs screamed with every breath. Blood soaked what was left of his suit. Lena Carter stayed by his side, blazer sharp as ever, eyes like fire, her presence a spear through the chaos. Vickers, trailing close, clutched the USB drive like a grenade, his body a battered wall between Darien and the madness outside. The service elevator jerked upward. A rare hush fell over them, the hum of steel masking the storm above. The fifth-floor boardroom was already a battlefield. Executives ringed the long oak table, suits rumpled, tempers unraveling. Screens flickered with breaking news. Elena Price's live stream, 12 million views. The teenage girls, 10 million, and rising. Hashtags blazing, Nova corruption, justice for Darian. At the head of the table, Chairman Victor Redding, cousin to Bo, slammed his fist down. He's burning us alive. Nova's stock is down 60%. 60. Lena tapped her tablet. The screen on the wall blinked to life, and Darian's bloodied face filled the room. Gasps shot around the table. "You're done," Darian rasped, voice gravel and iron. "Bo's out. And Judge Harlan Tate? He's next." Victor's jaw clenched. Before he could fire back, Vickers stepped forward, plugging the USB into Lena's device. The speakers erupted. Bo Redding's drunken slur echoed across the boardroom. "Frame him good, Harlan. Drugs'll bury him," followed by Judge Tate's crooked reply, 10 years minimum. Done. Then came the flood. Hidden payouts. Buried bias complaints. Systemic silencing. Nova's entire rot laid bare. Redding tried to speak, voice trembling. This is fake." Lena stepped in, voice like a blade. Verified, authenticated, and you knew. Darian leaned closer to the screen. Blood trickled from his chin, but his eyes were knives. "Expel Bo now, or I take this ship down with me." The boardroom exploded. Executives scrambled, some shouting, others frozen. Victor stammered, then barked, "Vote!" Hands rose, unanimous. Bo Redding's contract terminated. His name severed from Nova Air like a gangrenous limb. Darian's smirk deepened. Victory hurt, but it tasted good. He'd turned their secrets against them. He'd used their weapon to dismantle their empire. Lena streamed the vote live to Elena Price, who pushed it out in real time. Bo Redding's out. Darian wins. The teen girl echoed it with joy. They're listening. But Bo wasn't done. Minutes earlier, he'd slipped inside the courthouse, hat low, eyes wild, breath sour with whiskey, a snub-nosed revolver tucked inside his coat. He'd seen the news from the cab, Victor's betrayal, his legacy dissolving, and the rage, a lifetime of power slipping through his fists, boiled over. He shoved past security, his boot slammed open the boardroom door. The gun flashed. "You don't cut me, Cole!" He fired. The shot missed Darian's screen, but fate played crueler. The bullet tore into Lena, right through the chest. Her blazer bloomed red as she crumpled, tablet clattering to the floor. Darian lunged, one arm useless, catching her as she fell. Blood pooled around them. "Lena!" he cried, voice breaking. His ribs screamed, his world shattered. Bo raised the gun again, but Vickers tackled him, slamming him to the floor. The revolver skidded across the marble. "Stay down!" Vickers bellowed, pinning him. Lena's blood mixed with Vickers' wounds. Security rushed in. Executives fled. Victor cowered under the table. Cameras rolled. Darian held Lena in his lap, pressing his good hand to the wound. Blood soaked his fingers. "Stay with me," he whispered. Her lips moved, faint, soft. "You're CEO now," she breathed. "Fix it." Her eyes closed. Her breath stopped. Darian's roar tore through the room. Grief made flesh, a storm in his lungs. Outside, protesters surged forward, their signs rising like swords. Justice for Darian. End Nova corruption. They didn't know what had just happened inside, but they would, and they'd carry it to the world. Elena Price's live stream caught it all. The shot, the scream, the blood blooming on Lena's chest. Her voice cracked. "Oh, my God! They shot her! Bo Redding shot her!" The feed surged past 15 million. The teenage girl's synced stream sobbed through the chaos. She was helping him. She saved him. News vans screeched into the lot. Reporters shouted over each other as the story detonated across every screen. Nova Air's stock plummeted to 70% down. A company that once flew high, now nothing more than ash. Bo thrashed in cuffs, still snarling, "You'll regret this, Cole." But his empire was dead, his power a ghost, his final bullet, a tombstone for everything he thought he controlled. Darian Cole collapsed beside Lena. Her blood spilled into his lap, his ribs a furnace, his body failing, his soul unspooling into the void. Vickers dropped to one knee nearby, face grim, the USB still streaming Nova's sins across every newsfeed. Security dragged Bo away, but Darian didn't hear it. The only sound was silence, her stillness, her last words, a crown he never asked for. "You're CEO now." In Dallas, the boardroom watched in mute horror. Victor Redding's phone slipped from his shaking hand as Lena's blood bloomed on their corporate screen. They had severed Bo, but Lena's death cut deeper. And Darian? He lay there, soaked in loss, and still undefeated. A few days later, St. David's Medical Center, Austin. The hospital room was a cocoon of quiet. White walls, muted dawn, a heart monitor pulsing soft and steady, a rhythm of survival. Darian lay still. Arm in a cast, ribs wrapped tight, body wrecked from extinguishers, goons, and the war that had stretched from air to earth. But his eyes? Open, alive, unbroken. Beside him, the USB rested on a table, its secrets now history, Nova's old rot exposed to the world. Stock had fallen 80% before the crash finally leveled out. Outside, crowds filled the streets, signs like beacons, justice for Lena, Cole, for CEO, clean skies, clean company. The headlines screamed, Bo Redding arrested for murder. Judge Harlan Tate indicted for corruption. Nova Air Reborn. Elena Price's live stream hit 20 million. The teenage girl's stream surged too, her once broken voice now a symbol of strength. Darian shifted. Lena's last words echoed like thunder. "You're CEO now." He hadn't wanted the crown. He'd only wanted justice. But now? He bore both. Vickers had vanished after the courthouse, but his tapes and truth had split the sky open. Judge Tate? Disgraced? Bo? Facing life. Nova's board? Gutted. Darian had sent one text from the stretcher. Clean house. Lena's team had obeyed. The hospital door creaked. A nurse stepped in, crisp scrubs, calm face. She checked his chart. "You're stable, Mr. Cole. You've been through hell." Darian smirked, voice hoarse but dry. "Hell's my old neighborhood. I'm good." She smiled and left. Peace. For just a moment. But peace never lasts. The door slammed open again. Mallory Kent, the woman who started it all, stormed in. No badge, no uniform, just a gray hoodie and a kitchen knife gleaming in her hand. Out on bail, slipped through a glitch, madness in her eyes. "You think this is over?" she hissed. "You stole everything. I'm taking it back. You ruined me." Mallory Kent's voice tore through the hospital room, a jagged scream of desperation. Her hoodie was soaked in sweat. In her hand, a kitchen knife, gleaming with madness. She lunged. The blade slashed for Darian Cole's throat. He rolled. Pain exploded in his ribs. His casted arm useless, but his good hand caught her wrist mid-swing, the knife just inches from his neck. "You ruined yourself," he growled, his grip tightening. With a wrenching twist, the blade clattered to the floor. Mallory screamed, clawing at his face, nails raking his cheek. But Darien shoved her back. His strength, a flicker of what it had been, was still enough. She crashed into the IV stand. Alarms blared, monitors toppled. She scrambled to her feet, eyes wild. "I'll kill you!" she shrieked. She dove again, for the knife. But the door exploded open. 2 officers stormed in, weapons drawn. "Freeze! Get down!" One tackled her, pinning her with a grunt as she thrashed and sobbed. He took everything, but it was too late. The cuffs snapped shut. Her fight, finally, gone. Darien slumped back. Blood trickled from fresh scratches on his cheek. His chest heaved with pain and defiance. A nurse rushed in. Cops radioed in the hallway. The chaos peeled away until only the quiet remained. "She's done," one officer muttered, nodding at Darien, respect in his eyes. He didn't answer. He just stared out the window, past the chaos, toward the skyline of Austin, a city on fire with his name. Mallory Kent's last gasp had failed. Her knife, no match for a man forged in fire. By noon, the headlines blazed. Mallory Kent rearrested after hospital attack on Nova CEO. Elena Price streamed it live. He's unstoppable. The teenage girl's synced feed echoed like a song. She's gone for good. Nova Air's stock ticked up 20%. Investors woke up, and so did the people. From his hospital bed, Darien fired the rest of the old board via text. He launched a new passenger hotline for reporting bias. He hired new teams vetted for inclusion and transparency. He rebuilt Lena's vision, brick by brick, with his name now stamped on it. His good hand brushed the USB Vickers had given him. The cornerstone of a new Nova, a nurse returned, breathless. "You're trending everywhere, Mr. Cole. Stocks are climbing. They're calling you a legend." Darien chuckled, a dry, quiet sound. "Legends bleed, too," he rasped. "Tell them I'm just getting started." She smiled and left, and for the first time in days, he let the peace settle. Outside, the skyline shimmered. The storm that started in Houston, now just memory. He'd boarded a plane, a businessman, fought as a warrior, and emerged a king. Nova Air was his now. Its throne, written in blood. Karen's knife, Beau's bullet, Tate's gavel, none of them could hold, and the world, finally watching, knew it. The hospital room hummed around him, and Darien whispered to the empty air, "This airline's mine, and it'll never forget."